I'm going to assume that counts. I don't know.
I never know when the moment is that it captures.
I don't either because it has to redirect and it does some things and stuff. Things of this nature.
The lighting in here is duty.
Oh yeah. My grandfather's work was doo-doo. The screen cap is basically Denise making grumpy cat face, which is kind of hilarious.
Oh, my
Just the face your face. I mean,
not that face, a different face.
I don't know. I guess we can start now. People will show up as they do. Or not. It's still a holiday week. No one's going to be here.
That's a cherry thought.
Well, I mean, there'll be folks, I'm sure. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, and welcome to issue 575 of Geek City Radio. I'm one of your hosts, Aaron Duran.
I'm one of your other hosts, Bean Narita.
And I'm your other host, Cable Hashitani.
I feel bloated.
That's not where I thought this was going to go.
No, it's been a lot of rich
start.
foods the past few days and also beer. So, it's just nothing but, it's like Mr. Creosote over in here. Hey, Indigo's here. Hi, Indigo.
Why am I not finding our feed on the YouTubes here?
Because it always takes a second or 5 to boot up properly.
Is there?
You have to sit there and refresh and blah, blah, blah.
There you go. You've got a link in the chat.
Hey, look at that.
I will take that.
So we didn't meet last week because it was holiday breaks and whatnot, at least as much as it can be. Which means this week we've got double Star Talking. Star Talking.
We do.
That's right.
Almost 4 hours of material to unpack.
Start Talking 2 Electric Boogaloo.
See, I was going Fast and Furious, but it was like 2 Talking 2 Star or something, If we skipped 3, it'd have to be Star Talking Tokyo or, Tokyo Drift. Mandalore Drift. That's what it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Mandalore Drift.
The Mandalore Drift, which we got to see in one of the episodes this week, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, yeah, catch up. How's everybody going?
All right. It's like,
I think we'll have a different answer in 2021. Like, my gut says no.
No, we're not.
Not right away.
Not right away. Yeah.
Like I say this from a place of optimism. We are all still going to be wearing masks this time next year, and probably I'm going to be optimistic and say 50% of the vaccines will have been distributed.
Yeah.
That's optimistic.
Yay! No, when that starts, there'll be the all-new fight. There'll be the people who refuse to wear masks will definitely be anti-vaxxers. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be a hoot.
Which, you would like to think was like, you know what? Fine. If you don't want to take your precautions, cool, because you're only hurting yourself and anyone else that you interact with, like your children. Like you're an anti-vaxxer, you're not gonna let your kids get vaccinated either. You're harming you and your family. But the more likely scenario is that if people refuse the vaccine, it's going to keep spreading amongst those people, and then it'll probably mutate into something that the vaccine can no longer prevent.
So you're saying there's going to be mutants?
Not the kind you want, Aaron. Not the kind you want.
Aaron,
style.
Be the mutant that you want to see in the world.
Oh man, what would I want to be? That's a good way to start the show. Nice nerdy show.
What kind of mutant
You
do you
know.
want to be?
Yeah, like what did I want to have for my power? I mean,
okay, let's break it down.
I don't know what the.
There are
All
active
right,
powers, there are passive powers,
Mm.
and then
Ooh.
I'm going to put psionics over in the other side. So do you
What are
want
psionic?
active, passive, or psionic?
I have a little bit of both. Like I've got an active power, but I've also got like a passive defense.
Okay.
Like a contingency spell if you're a wizard. If you're dropped to 1 hit point, you explode. I mean, I don't want that power.
So,
All right, hold on. Catch me up here. Give me an example of a passive power and a psionic power.
active power, Cyclops' optic beam. Passive power, Wolverine's healing factor.
Yeah.
Psionic power, Jean fucking Grey.
Right.
Because she can kind of be active and passive with her powers, right?
Yeah, the implication is that telekinetics or telepaths are always reading everyone's mind. They have to forcibly, not forcibly, but continually monitor their own powers so that they're not just absent-mindedly reading other people's minds. Wolverine's is 100% passive. It requires something physical to happen to him that kicks in his healing factor.
You know, as much as the healing factor sounds good, like that also means that like Wolverine can't ever get a tattoo, and he actually can't get drunk.
No,
you know.
he has.
So I don't want that.
He can, but he's an incredibly high tolerance. Like the amount of alcohol that Wolverine requires in order to get tipsy is enough to kill 10 normal-sized people.
Yeah, which sounds like fun, but also expensive.
Mm-hmm.
That's the downside. And also, like the amount of beer Wolverine would have to drink to get a minor buzz, like he's just going to be peeing all the time.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yep.
All right, so I don't want a healing factor. Man, but then that's dangerous. I don't know. I feel like the powers I want would be kind of boring.
I mean, like psionic is kind of cool.
But what kind of psionic powers?
Yeah.
Telekinesis, pyrokinesis is fun. Really anything that allows you to essentially be a ranged fighter, because then you don't have to worry about it if you're on the squishier side. And you can do damage from a safe distance.
Well, pyrokinesis does technically mean that your mind is controlling fire. It is still seen as a more active power.
Okay. What about
and like Pyro, who is a pyrokinetic mutant, doesn't actually create fire. He has to have fire available to control. He can't create it.
He's not like actual Firestarter from the Stephen King book.
Mm-hmm.
She can just create it.
Right.
I want weather control. I think Storm's powers are pretty righteous.
Yep.
That's a good one.
I always wonder what the offset to that is, because her abilities seem limitless. And
it's usually by whatever creative team.
But yeah, like they pretty much give her carte blanche. It's like, no, Storm can do whatever. It's like, okay, cool, but also that's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, when they first find her, isn't she being worshipped? Like in the original comics?
She is still worshipped in that part of Africa as a god.
Right. Because she controls all weather. She can basically call lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she just flies. They never say that she flies because she creates a gust of wind. She just flies.
Yes, but that is how she flies. Unlike Rogue, she can't fly. Like, since Rogue
Rogue can fly now because she stole Captain Marvel's powers, right?
Right. Because that was convenient, but that's still not her mutant power.
Yeah. Right.
I always really liked Rogue, like back in the animated X-Men days, which is my primary exposure to the canon anyway. And I know that it has this like obvious negative side effect of like you can't come into contact with people whenever you want because you can't control that aspect of your power.
Mhm.
But it does allow you a lot of flexibility in that you can like nab a power anytime it catches your eye. And the whole, like I have to wear gloves and like this, like the intimacy is a problem. It's a little bit tragic in this romantic way that I kind of enjoy.
All
I
right.
think that's one of her main appeals, especially
Yeah.
that. And since they gave that a physical presence by pairing her with Gambit, because they are the everlasting will they or won't they.
Right.
Right.
Didn't they just do a
Not that I-
miniseries where the did?
I think so.
Like, it's Kelly Thompson wrote it, I think. And I think they got married.
It's possible. There's an
But then
entirely. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Then I think House of X happened, and it's all like, starting over.
Yeah. I was going to say that there is the answer to all of these questions is an entirely different podcast
That's true.
that we don't do. That like it is currently being done.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast. That's they're Jan Miles folks.
Yep.
Hisham in the
I
chat says that they would go with something practical, like being able to keep track of time really well.
Oh.
You never need a
That would
watch, you
actually-
never need a timer. It would make you very, very punctual. And for some people, that seems like a superpower.
That would be maddening to me because I would be even more aware of people being late than I already am.
That
You would
is
see
a
me
good
on the
point.
watchtower with a sniper rifle so fast. I'd just snap.
I actually used to be painfully punctual, and these days I struggle to get anywhere on time.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was some sort of like regressive development because it didn't serve me to be punctual when others are not, or if it's just basically like a like you just eventually you just move away from things. I had to be punctual because in the military they don't mess around with that. It's a really big deal, and because of discipline or whatever. And the further I get away from that, the further I get away from maintaining a skill of that type.
I would think part of
for me,
that is. Go ahead.
I just say for me, it's always going to be because of my years in production. Like it's just, yeah, time is literally money, and on time is 15 minutes late. It's burned into me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think somebody on the production told me one time that like a major studio, like every minute that you go over that you're like go over time, they're like that breaks down to about $1,000. Like on a major film, like it's a stupid amount of money when you're not working. Like you're just burning it. Yeah.
Crazy.
That's why, back in the day with film, $100 a foot. That's why when you watch old bloopers and you always hear the guy in the background saying, reset, go, 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 go. That's the guy who's round counting his head, 100, 200, 300, 400. Yeah. And even though I don't like his powers, I do like the ability to, every time I use my powers, to just yell out, I'm non-vulnerable when I'm blasted.
Oh, cannonball.
Cannonball. When I'm a blasting. Doesn't Psylocke always have to say something too? When I focus my mind, I create a dagger or something.
I don't think she says that. And I don't. Psylocke is still problematic even after House of X.
Yeah. Yeah. Psylocke, everyone's problematic mutant.
Well, I appreciate that she is now physically a white British woman again.
Oh, she? Because I didn't read any of the House of X stuff. I will eventually.
This came out after. This is post House of X, but her transformation, like it's covered in the current Excalibur, because she is now Captain Britain, as well as being
Oh,
Psylocke.
that's right. You told me that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. You told me that, and it sounded kind of cool.
Yep, and she is now the protector. But the Asian woman who was whose body that Psylocke was using, Quanon, is still around and still has all of Betsy Braddock's powers. So we don't know, like, both of them are now Psylocke.
Okay.
But
Well, was she a
Quanon,
member of the Hand? That
Yeah.
They,
yeah, she was.
okay. Denise is like, you nerds.
She's one of the
I'm
most.
not familiar.
Psylocke was another telepathic mutant, but she was a proper British woman. She wore a lot of pink. She had purple hair. Her X-Men costume was very delicate and made it look like that she should be standing behind Colossus the entire time, cowering, because she was afraid of physical conflict. And during the 90s, I believe it was after Jim Lee started taking on art roles, the artist role on X-Men, they wrote in a storyline where Betsy Braddock was targeted by an assassin, and the interaction swapped minds, so that Betsy Braddock's mind was now in this Asian assassin's body, and the assassin was in Braddock's, and it died. So now you have this proper British woman, Caucasian, inside the body of an Asian woman. And then they're like, yeah, she's this great Asian character. I'm like, hang on a second. What did you just do? And her popularity increased because suddenly she was fetishized.
Super fetishized.
This is the
By fans or by the writing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the artist.
Yep.
Jim Lee has a type.
Gotcha. Well, that's a shame because that's not how you correctly do diversity.
I did mention it was the 90s.
Yeah, I was to say, you know what?
And 90s in comics was bigger, sexier, boobier, and
right.
foil and
Super
chrome
booby.
everything. And if we can have 18 variant covers, that would be great.
Yeah, you know what would make this machine gun better? 2 of them connected.
This was the era.
You know what's cooler than a katana? 2 katanas glued together.
This was also the era that gave us cable.
Ah, your favorite.
Cable got interesting about 10 years after he debuted.
Yes, when he was no longer part of just being written by Rob Liefeld.
Yeah, Fabian Nacia did a lot to redeem Cable. Yeah. Anyway,
let's switch away from
a weird
mutants.
opening to Jedi. Oh,
do we want to do Disco or Mando first?
Let's start with Disco because that's the more.
It's the heavier one.
It's the heavier one. I was gonna say the more emotional one, but that's not quite right. But then I think that I think that Mando is maybe like a little bit more exciting / upbeat.
Right.
Sure.
Yes.
Now I'm trying to remember. So the 2 episodes that we have for Disco.
Yeah. So I knew them a couple hours ago, and now I can't think of the names of the.
So the most recent one was Unification 3.
Yes, and right before
Sacrifice
that
and then Unification 3. Scavenger. Scavenger. And Unification 3. Yeah.
Perfect. So Scavenger is we bring back Booker. He has been captured and taken to like a slave mining planet. But he was able to get a message out to
Scrap
Michael
planet.
before that had happened, explaining that he had discovered the location of a black box.
And the black box is important because Michael's using them to try and figure out the bird.
Yes, like they have a lead on what, well, not on what might be the cause, but a lead on the type of information that might help them understand it a little bit better. And so they're, I'm sorry, it's not a mining planet. It's like a scrapyard, like a galactic junkyard. And so even though Michael does not have permission to go find Booker, her and Giorgio take Book's ship and leave Grudge on the Discovery. And they go to find Booker and this black box.
Yeah. And we get a little bit more into what's happening in the galaxy because they mention the Bajoran trading depot or whatever. Like, don't come directly to us. Go through the Bajorans.
Right.
We see now that the Andorians and the Orions are clearly, if they're not chummy, they have what is essentially a trade relationship kind of thing. Like we may not like each other, but it's mutually beneficial for us to work together.
I think that got set up in the first episode of the season, is that the Andorians and the Orions are working together, and it's the Emerald Chain, I believe is what it's called.
Yeah, the Emerald Chain, yeah. Which makes me wonder if we're going to find out that Andor left the Federation also.
It seems possible. There aren't any. We haven't seen any Andorians that are connected to the Federation, but there hasn't really been any talk about it either. At this point, we haven't even heard what the deal is with the Vulcans and the Federation.
Right. That's the next episode.
Right.
This
was more like the closest that Discovery's gotten, I think, this season to like a more action-y, heisty one. I mean, I know there was like the action in the bar in the second episode. But this has been the first one that's had like some run and gun, and that it's definitely been the action heavier episode so far. But also balanced.
The previous episodes
having that wonderful
are sort of like leading up to
with
again still more establishing of what the new what is going to be like. The
Trill. Sorry, full disclosure, we have bad internet, so hopefully Denise and I are going to be able to hear each other.
I think that's what's going on, is you were both talking simultaneously because you can't hear the other one talk.
Cool. Maybe Cable should take over a little more.
Yep.
Let's see what I can do here. I think the important parts of this episode are the fact that Burnham and Giorgio went rogue, and how that had to be dealt with by the rest of the crew, Saru and the rest of the crew, and what is going on with Giorgio. So those are the big talking points. Like, we got to see a glimpse of this in the episode where she meets David Cronenberg's character, where she just kind of blanks out in the middle of a crowded hallway on the Discovery and really doesn't say anything, but clearly she's having some episodes and we don't know what that is. Speculation.
And we still don't see, we're not really getting anything more from her in terms of figuring out what at least I'm not piecing together what might be going on. I feel like they're just sort of coasting with that and teasing it for a future episode, sort of like the Detmer thing. She just kind of kept having episodes, but things weren't necessarily escalating, and then it sort of gets discussed a little bit more broadly and openly.
I, I'm kind of thinking Detmer's okay now that they've kind of dealt with her, what seemed like a bigger issue. Um, but with Giorgio, like if I had to guess, it has to do with her being Terran and the thing that Cronenberg's character mentioned that we just lost they're just gone. We cannot.
Two
There's even no.
universes keep getting further and further apart.
Yeah, so I feel like something's on like a weird, whatever Star Trekky, space time continuum molecular level is breaking Giorgio up. Like whatever the Trek Prime universe is almost like an immune system. It's rejecting her.
The other way they could be going with that is that, yes, it is the separation of the two universes, or getting further and further apart, but that what she's going through is an adjustment. Like, in order for her to be in the universe that she's in, she's having these separation episodes so that her body adjusts to being in the Prime universe.
Gotcha.
That would make that would be yeah.
I'm trying to think what show or movie this was from, but I've seen similar but inverse examples of sort of this theory where oh, you're from the other universe and now you're here, but you and your doppelganger can't exist in the same place, so one of you is coming apart, basically. Or they can't survive in the other universe that they didn't originally come from unless they, I don't know, figure out a way to like change your biorhythm or something like that. You're the frequency that you function on, because there's a slight difference between the two.
So there are two movie examples of what you're talking about. One is The One with Jet Li, where he is one, like, it postulates that the multiverse exists, and if you go through each of these universes, if you go jumping through them and find yourself and kill that version of yourself, then you get that power. And the more versions of yourself you kill, the more powerful you become, until you are the one. And then the other one that's more recent that talked about how you can't survive for long periods of time outside of your own dimension or universe is Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yep. Which is why Miles had to be the one that ends up saving the day, because everyone else had to get back home to their home dimension or they would have died.
Right. There's one other one. I just cannot place it. I don't think I ever saw Bruce Lee as the One, but I definitely saw Miles Morales and
Jet Li.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jet Li.
Well, there is the Van Damme classic Time Cop, where if you touch your different self in the time, you both explode.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Yeah. Classic cinema.
So good one, Cable. I hadn't really thought about those concepts when sort of thinking about what might be wrong with her.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you're from this universe and you're in this universe, and that used to be something that could easily be done, well, not easily, but it happened. Yep. And it was never that big a deal. Always home eventually. But now you're talking about you belong here and you're over here.
It's like,
so I like that theory.
Like there's a tether that's getting pulled tighter and tighter and tighter.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting to see how that plays out.
And I think that
especially because she's flashing to some kind of death also.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, I say the teaser images that we've seen for upcoming episodes, I think tether is a really good way of describing that.
And then of course the other big thing, like the small B plot in the episode, was Stamets connecting with Adira Tal.
Thank you.
And I think that was handled really well, especially with when they discussed it. It's like, you've had an experience where your partner died and then came back, and if that's what Adira is going through with being connected to all the former hosts through the symbiote, is giving them an even more powerful connection to the immediate host, former host, their boyfriend, then that's like, I can see where Stamets is like, oh yeah, that's the same thing. I 100% believe you. Let's talk more.
Yeah.
But the
I
big
actually really like the scene between. See, I like the scene between Stamets and Dr. Culper. It's nice to see Stamets opening up. Like, he's always going to be the I'm too smart for everyone in the room, because that's kind of part of the character's charm. But seeing him legitimately like open up to Culper was a really like sweet moment. And I actually liked how Culper was like, go ahead, keep talking. You know, that's good. That's good for you, you know.
I think what you were talking about earlier, Aaron, with we're kind of done with Detmer. I don't think we are, but I do think that what's going on with her, in relation to, she went to Hugh and said, I do need help with, I need to talk. I think all of her therapy is now happening off screen, which is
Sure.
not great. I would like to see some of that on screen, because I think it's dealing with someone who has pilot arrogance, going through that level of trauma and addressing it, I think is important.
Right. So I don't know if either of you follow one of the many Instagrams, but there's an Instagram page called, I think it's called just Star Trek Logs. And it's one of the, I mean, there's always that thing like, look, unless it happens on screen, I don't care about it. But which I'm not that way, but I get why some people say that. The actors have started to record personal logs for this Instagram page. And I think so far we've got Jet Reno and Aurora. They've both given one. And they're not long. They're like 3-minute entries. And it's the performers, and it's also very much their tone, you know. So Jet's like, I'm supposed to do this thing. But so, okay, here we go. You know, it's a lot of that. So we might see some Detmer stuff that way. It's kind of
that'd be interesting.
It's not going to show up on my phone.
Yeah, it's
Star Trek Logs. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, you know what? If Star Trek Discovery was filmed in the way that like Next Gen used to be filmed, at some point or every now and then, you would get an episode where the cold open is Detmer, on a couch with ship's council, kind of or like rehashing some of the things that happened or processing her feelings about it. And it might not even have anything to do with the episode. It's just the way that they, fill in those 26 episodes with material. But because the modern filming style is to have like really condensed stories, I'm not sure if we're going to see any more of that. It would be ideal if they do touch on it more, just a little bit, or down towards the end of the season. But I think it's a coin toss on whether or not we will.
I think it's important for the long-term health of the show that they do start doing that, because they've already shown us at the outset of this season that part of the story they want to tell is the rest of the bridge crew.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would not, like, they are actively spending screen time putting everybody on screen so that we can see them and hear their names more often. They're just not getting additional screen time past that. And it's weird to know, like, to watch the show and be excited about these characters and know their names and think, yeah, it's great to know how these folks are doing, and yet also be cognizant of how filming works and how Hollywood works, and to know that part of, like, any of those actors' complaint would be like, I got 30 seconds of screen time in this episode, which fans will just look at it and go, oh yeah, it was great, and they were there and they did this cool thing. It's like, yeah, I shot for 18 hours this week and I get 30 seconds of screen time. Why am I still in my contract? So, like,
Yeah, you're
I'm
right.
hoping people, like, I always hope that the people who are in Star Trek understand that whatever they're putting on screen, the fan base is creating more of their story for them.
Oh yeah.
In
Well, I think
and giving
yeah.
them more importance than they may be feeling.
Well, I think since this is kind of the first Trek show ever where they're basically 100% online in terms of fandom, and so I feel like this is the first Trek series where everyone involved is very much aware of how important their characters are, no matter how minor they think their role might be. There's, you know, there's someone out there that, even though he's been used for this comedic relief lately, there's someone out there who probably Linus is their favorite character because he's this awkward outsider and they like to see him. And even though he's comic relief sometimes, it's like, but they're not mean to him. It's just that, you know, he's kind of awkward sometimes, and that's okay because I am too.
Linus is their Saurian Reginald Barclay.
Yeah, but no one makes fun of Linus. They made fun of Reginald in TNG.
True. This is true.
You know, so you know, there's like a lot of that stuff, I think, and I think this is a cast that's aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
which is good because I think it's important that the representation that Discovery has on that bridge is important for Star Trek fans of every age to see.
Right.
There are 2 women at the helm of Discovery. There's a black woman with a very non-white sounding name at the helm of Discovery. That's important.
Yeah.
It's super important.
Yeah. And I do think they all know that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, every performer is going to want more screen time. That's just the nature of being a performer. You want more screen time.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that either. But I don't think we're going to hear stories like we used to hear on like TNG, where Denise Crosby or Marina Sirtis rightly would both go to the producer and say, I have to be here all the time. I literally just sit on the bridge and do nothing. Give me something to do. Granted, it was far more egregious on TNG, you know.
Yeah. It's like, oh, you're doing it. You sit there and feel things. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd like to think that the writing has evolved well beyond that at this point. The other thing that's worth going over is this is the episode where we get to see some upgrades, right? This is where they introduce the upgrades to the ship. The big one being that Adira has re-established how Stamets makes his connection to the spore drive so that he no longer has to have those shunts in his arm, which is a really big deal because it's, you know, like just unpleasant body modification.
Right.
Yeah, that was important. This whole concept of programmable matter is neat.
Even right, because now they have.
Yeah, go ahead.
So now they have the detach nacelles too.
That's the one where I went
how
like,
that
what?
works. I mean,
Star Trek
neat,
physics.
But how does it work?
Magnets.
It's funny. It literally is magnets. They said magnetic detachment. It is magnets, but it's special space magnets. I did notice when we rewatched Unification 3 this afternoon, because I'd wondered, like, because in my head, when Black Alert happens and that spin happens, in my head, I imagine the warp nacelle is going like, whoop, 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 because they're all disconnected, which would be funny. But you actually see them go, they lock right as it starts. Like right as the Black Alert starts and the inner saucer does the rotate, the nacelles lock on, and then it jumps. So there's that. I read some complaints that Discovery still looks the same on the interior shots, and I didn't need them to explain it in the series, like why, but like in real life, it's because they paid a buttload of money to build this set.
Yep.
And they're not going to rebuild it because it's had an upgrade. They're just not. I do like it that it's -A, 1031-A now.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Yeah, NCC 1031-A, because technically the Discovery was destroyed.
This is true.
According to history, this is a new discovery. So, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I do like how there's a lot of history of they're like, yeah, we don't know anything about anything that Discovery did. We didn't know about this spore drive. We didn't know about this. We didn't know about that. It's like,
Right.
yep, that's what happens when you have to keep secrets at Starfleet.
Yeah.
Although I would think that would be the thing that you pass down from CNC to CNC.
Yeah. Although that makes me wonder, now jumping to the second one, Unification 3,
Which we should.
if the existence of Spock's sister is supposed to be a secret, which is how they explain why he never mentions them in TOS ever, mentions Michael. Does that mean that all of Vulcan kept that secret? Because they're all like, Michael Burnham has returned. They're all like, oh yeah, Spock's sister, Spock's adopted sister.
Wait, who is what is the secret here?
So at the end of the second season of Discovery, Starfleet essentially redacted everything about Discovery's spore drive, the majority of what Discovery did, and the existence of some of the crew, including Michael Burnham.
Right.
Oh, gotcha.
But
But
that's only Starfleet. That doesn't, like, the Klingons know exactly how they got beaten during the war. They know exactly.
I guess that's true.
They know who killed, like, T'Kuvma and started the Klingon Federation War.
And then there's, of course, all this. And there's whatever Starfleet service anybody who ended up on the Discovery did for however many years prior to that. That's a good question. I mean, I don't remember the exact wording of this whole sort of cover up regarding the Discovery, but it seems to me like the most common thing to do is like build a stopping point for anybody, because you can't erase everybody's entire history unless you erase everyone who knew them.
Right.
So I would have pictured it as just being like and then they left Starfleet. We don't know what happened after that.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And it really doesn't have any serious impact. This is one of those, it's what they call like the refrigerator logic, which is what pops in your head after the show's over and you're looking for a snack. You go, hey, wait a minute.
It's a good name for it.
Think about that one.
Yeah. That's actually, in screenwriting class, I was actually taught that. They're like, if it's a minor plot point that doesn't hurt the story, but it doesn't make a lot of sense, or like it's refrigerator logic, just power through, move on.
It's much the same logic behind the surprise guest of Unification 3, Burnham's mother, being a member of the Quat Malat, where everything that we have learned so far about the Quat Malat is that why would they take in a random human woman?
Right. Yeah.
The only precedent being is they once upon a time took in an orphaned male child and taught them their ways, even though he was not considered to be a Quat Malat.
Right. But he was Romulan, right? Yeah.
He was Romulan.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of get the impression that, I mean, isn't one of their actual tenets is lost causes?
Yes, they must bond themselves to a lost cause.
Yeah, so maybe, they meet Michael's mom and she's a wreck because, of everything that happened. And they're like, well, stay with us. You'll get better. We will heal you. We'll help you. And then, she finds balance in their order, and they're like, all right, well, you've earned your right. You can do it. I could kind of see them being that way.
I don't think it's implausible that it happened that way. It just, for the sake of the episode, it was very convenient.
Yes.
Because you needed the Quatmalats to be there to be the voice of candor. And where they've been going with Michael Burnham this entire season, there was literally only one person in the universe that could set her back on a path, and that's her mom.
Oh, am I glad that happened too. Now I feel like we're going to get actual growth out of Michael again. Which is nice. Because she had to be honest with herself.
Yeah.
I think it was a... Go ahead, Cable.
No, go ahead.
I think it's a... I think it made a lot of sense for the arc that she's been going through. She's been very unsure about where to be, what her place is, and how to reconcile her previous life in the past with Starfleet and the new life that she had been building for herself in the future. And just she was just super, super full of uncertainty. And sometimes you kind of have to get pushed off of a cliff in order to know what you really want. And kind of like the more extreme version of like, you can't decide, you flip a coin. As soon as the coin hits the air, you know what you want the answer to be. But with all of your emotions laid bare in front of an entire Vulcan council.
And Romulans.
And Romulans,
yes. And Romulans, yeah. And, like half your Starfleet ship's crew. It's... And I really... her facial expressions, her reactions were so, like, perfect in that moment of, like, why are you throwing me under this bus right now while I'm trying to accomplish this goal? Aren't you supposed to be helping me? This, like, sort of shock and betrayal. But then coming out on the other end going, okay, well, I didn't appreciate it, but I see what you did there and why. So thanks.
Yeah. I do like in that leading up to that scene when they're asking about how come, why did Vulcan leave the Federation and was it the Romulans? I liked it when the Admiral said, no, the Romulans wanted to share. The Romulans wanted to stay. It was the Vulcans that pushed for it, which me be kind of like this nerdy meta thing. I kind of like that because that tells me that in the long run, Picard's mission to help the Romulan people is ultimately a success. If that means at one time they're like, no, it took us 100 years to get here, but the Federation actually, we think we can trust them. They did take us in. It was rocky and it was ugly, but they did give us a chance. So maybe we should share this. Maybe we shouldn't withhold this information, no matter how nervous it makes our Vulcan cousins. And again, that's just me writing, the history in my head, but there's to lack of a term, there's some logic to that. And that one Vulcan has very much shades of calling back to Enterprise, that whole Vulcan purity thing.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. That does seem to be a default thing whenever they want to show an issue with the Vulcans. It's like, well, let's turn on that xenophobia. Well, not even xenophobia, isolationism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a better term for it.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because that was something I was thinking about after I rewatched the episodes. That's another one of the themes that has really been prevalent in this season is all the different, because of the burn, a lot of groups have really sort of like gone inward and become a lot more insular. I mean, initially it was by like without choice. You can't travel from world to world, so you can't interact with as many different groups. And then, like essentially, I think what they're getting at with this for the season is like, this is how you become a National Socialist.
Yeah, it's playing that thing like whenever there's a massive, and history shows us too, whenever there's a massive natural disaster or something that's even humanity created, I think as a rule, humans do one of two things. They either really band together under a sense of common goal of we're all in this, or they become tribal as hell. And they just build up even thicker walls against more perceived enemies. And, you know, whatever people's views are of the Federation as a political entity, it did maintain this rather massive and, from all intents on the surface, peaceful gathering of people, and maintained a, you know, relatively good peace. And oh shit, something took that all away. What do we do?
In one day,
well, all right,
in a moment.
Yeah, well, yeah, the whole thing of like, if that could happen to the mighty Federation, what's little old Earth gonna do? What's little old Vulcan gonna do? What's Andor? You know, kind of thing.
And this is after they have weathered multiple attacks from the Borg, from the Dominion. These were all threats that they saw coming.
Yeah, and who knows what they've dealt with in 900 years between shows. I'm sure there were other, you know, the Great Q War, the invasion of the Doomsday Machines. I'm sure there was a bunch of shit that they went through, you know.
Yeah, but those were all threats that they saw coming, and all indications point to the fact that nobody saw the burn coming. So whatever it was a century ago, and nobody saw the attack coming. And clearly, they're moving the direction of this was deliberate. This was an attack. It has an origin point. Someone did this, which starts to get into that same territory that Attack on Titan and Pacific Rim get into, where it's like, oh, there are these giant things, there are these monsters that are always attacking us. We have to figure out how to do this. It's like, hang on, how about let's go back to where are these things coming from? Who has a giant monster gun pointed at us, and why?
Right.
But you don't get to ask those questions if you're constantly just fighting off the monsters.
Right. And that's the classic chain of events, right?
Quick.
There's like, you hit a... Okay. Oh, so what is it? It's you hit a patch of uncertainty. Uncertainty leads to fear, which leads to anger, which leads to aggression.
Right. And that does
that'd be a good segue, nice. If I wasn't about to bring up one more thing. Damn it.
Oh, go ahead.
But really quick, Norm brought up something he read a review, I don't know if it was IO9 or not, about how Unification 3, its theme is all about code switching, and how a lot of people of color really resonated with that episode, because at one moment Michael is expected to be the perfect representation of the Federation, but then she has to remind the Vulcans, like, no, I'm one of you too. I was raised on Vulcan. And then it's, well, no, but I'm also human. It's the whole thing when you're, especially if you're a person of color, or if you're of a like sexual minority, it's I had to present myself to be accepted in the quote real world, but I'm also this too. And if I'm this too much, then these ones won't like me anymore. But if I go too far this way, then I'll be treated as like a cultural traitor against this way. There's a lot of that in that episode.
Yeah. So, yeah, I hadn't even really thought about that, but yep.
Yeah.
I have one thing that I promised I was going to do before we switched to Mando, and that is off air, the three of us discussed this topic, and Aaron and I had very well thought out, and we could back it up with information and experience, and on one side of this, and Denise had another opinion on the other side based on just viewing what was going on. And I need to say this very clearly. Denise was right, and Aaron and I were wrong. Tilly became the first officer. Denise was 100% right.
First officer.
Well, we were watching the episode, and that happened. I looked at America, I'm like, I didn't see that coming. And she just kind of looked at me, I'm like, they've been telegraphing it the entire season. How did you not see it coming? I'm like, well, because it's Starfleet and they do this and this and this. Is like, yeah, this is where your experience with Star Trek is wrong. They're trying to tell a different story. Just pay attention to the story they're telling. And I'm like, oh man, Denise said the same thing. Denise was right.
I get off that too, and I actually agree.
Mhm.
I would like them to promote her at least. Like,
Yes.
make her a lieutenant then. She's earned that. Come on.
I think that like there are when you look at it from the standpoint of this is the story they're telling, it's like, oh yeah, it it doesn't make sense from a what we know about Starfleet, but what we have seen the crew of Discovery go through, that is the only
Yeah.
choice Saru could make to help heal his crew. And he is still actively trying to do that.
And even
Right.
just if we're talking about like a structural thing, they may have that exact argument on screen.
Mhm.
She says there's so many people who are way more experienced than I am and are higher ranking than I am, and I would be in charge. Like people's lives would be in my hands, and I didn't finish the training, and like just so many reasons why it shouldn't be her. And Saru is like, the things that you have been through aren't in the book, which is something she
Yeah.
said when they first arrived at Starfleet. Is like, none of this was in the book. We had to figure it out on our own. And that is what qualifies her to be the number one, even if she doesn't think that on paper she belongs there.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I get all of that. I do want
Yep.
them to promote her.
And I would venture to say
Yeah,
that that's
all.
a feeling that a lot of women go through.
Right.
Which
I did
is
get
why
into
I
an
think
argument
Val
with
did.
someone.
Go ahead.
I did get in an argument with someone online that said that it's wrong that they're just like, it's never happened. The one thing I got in it with somebody and I shut them down really quickly because they were just aggro about Tilly. That it never in the history of Star Trek has someone ever been given that much responsibility without ever having gone through Starfleet's command training program. And I was like, you're right, except for, Captain Spock. He flat out says he never went through it. That, in Wrath of Khan, one of his last lines, never did the Kobayashi Maru, which is basically the final test of the Starfleet command training program.
Mhm.
That kind of known scenario, and he tells Kirk, "What do you think of my solution?" Yeah, it's like, yeah, so no, except your beloved Captain Spock didn't go through it.
It's a good way to. It's a good
And
way to
I
shut
got a
that
lot
one
of
down.
like, shut up, yeah, it was fun.
Good job.
Thanks.
All right.
You know who else is doing a good job?
I just really like the music on Mando.
It's so good.
That's really good.
So we'll start with The Siege, which was not last week's episode, but the week before, which was directed by and starring Carl Weathers.
That's right, man.
So it's
He took his per
Yeah.
diem for being a director, saved it all up, bought some food, and baby, you got a stew on.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was really cool to see.
It was.
I don't know if he's ever directed anything else before. I'm sure he's done smaller projects, but
I think this was his big directorial debut. There's a way to find out. I can look at.
I know, I'm looking it up.
Director Carl
I'm like
Weathers.
halfway there if things would load.
All filmography.
I know. Come on.
Oh wait. Producers. He's
and you're all like,
he has 13 director credits to his name. Looks like they were all television. He's directed an episode of Hawaii Five-0.
That's cool.
He's directed an episode of Sheena.
Yeah.
Silk
That's
Stockings. Awesome. Renegade. There you go.
There we go.
So he's cut his teeth on some journeyman TV kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
So this was a nice return to Navarre and three characters really that we were already familiar with, to kind of get more of what was going on Navarre and what was going on surrounding the child. I think the big reveal that we
Yes.
and other people freaked out
It
about
was a weird one.
Yeah. Oh, are you guys still getting lag on me when I talk?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Super
I'm
laggy.
gonna do this. This tends to help, but I'm
That's
still
true.
here.
Oh, yay.
Okay, so you said the big thing was what, Cable?
The big thing was returning to Navarre and discovering that there was more behind the plot surrounding the child and what the client and ultimately Moff Gideon wanted from the child.
Yes. And so I actually can't remember why. And now I'm gonna blank on his name. Carl Weathers. Why Carl Weathers wanted to go
Grief.
to that Grief Targa? Thank you. I don't remember why he wanted to go there.
So he and Cara Dune had set up a fairly good provisional government over their area of Navarre. What they had discovered was there was still a single remaining outpost of Imperial holdouts, and they figured if they could destroy that, then all Imperial control would be gone from their planet, and they could go back to self-management, which is what they felt they had during the Old Republic, and that they wanted from the New Republic as well. It's like we don't want to be part of the New Republic. We don't want to be part of the Empire. We just want to be.
Yeah, well, that's the classic Outer Rim attitude anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's also implied that they want all that because he thinks it's an Imperial ammo depot. So he also wants it all gone because that's like a beacon to every merc and pirate in the quadrant. And he's like, they'll come here and they'll tear this place apart taking guns.
Yep. But if we just blow it all up, then none of us have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is easy to do since it's powered by a volcano.
Gotta love the Empire.
Yep. Well, there's a
They are
lot
nothing if not flashy. And
yes.
do not believe in handrails.
Nope.
Classic Empire architecture.
Why? Why would you have a handrail? It's fine. You just lean into it. It's fine.
It's just stormtroopers anyway.
But it is where we get the knowledge that apparently it was not just an outpost, it was a laboratory, and they were clearly using the child's blood, what little they got, to add to test subjects for reasons unknown.
Right. They did something that was a little bit risky, I think, in this day and age, when it comes to talking about Star Wars, and that's referencing, even if only, just barely brushing past the midichlorian thing. I feel like at this point I kind of don't care about it, but I know that, when the midichlorian concept was first introduced, it really made a lot of people mad. Whether because they thought it was stupid or because it kind of takes away from just like the magical aspect of the Force and being a Jedi. I don't know. Did you guys have feelings about that?
I've never felt negatively about midichlorians. I don't see how saying that beings with a high midichlorian count makes them any more or less magical, because it's still fascinating that it's like, oh, the Force can be manipulated by people with a certain level of midichlorians in their blood. Cool. That still covers across hundreds of unrelated races.
Yeah.
Like, how is that not magic?
Right. I just, when I heard because of the M count, all I thought was like, look at you, Jon Favreau, just being like, you know what, fuck it. You guys may not like it, but midichlorians are canon. Die angry. I'm going to play with them. I mean, and Filoni has never begrudged the concept, so he's going to be like, yeah, I'm good with it. Let's do it.
That's fine, whatever. Yeah, and I think I think that is maybe what they did, where they're like, you know what, no one has to like the concept of midichlorians, but it is canon. It's been established that this is what gives you that Force sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
So So there you go. Although in the next episode, they kind of go back to referencing it in a less scientific and more mystical way by saying, oh, his power. You mean you're talking about the baby's powers? Well, no, I'm talking about the Force. The Force is what allows him to have those powers.
Mm-hmm. Shall we just jump right to the other episode then?
We don't have to. I just thought it was interesting the way they looked at it from both angles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we could anyway, because for as much fun as the last week's was, it doesn't really move the story along other than that last 5 minutes with Gideon. Like that's the oh shit. And it's not to say
the whole episode was to get to that.
And puts my personal favorite, Katie O'Brien, in the Star Wars universe. I was so thrilled about that.
I know. That's cool.
That was the woman that I wanted to be Batwoman so badly. She still wanted to be Batwoman. Anyway.
She looked mean.
Yeah. She played a villain in Black Lightning, and now she's playing a villain in Star Wars. It's like, okay, I'm good with this. She's got a good, like, I will.
What's funny is she looks. I know it's not her. She looks a lot like the primary Imperial villain in Star Wars Squadrons, which takes place even later than it's kind of interesting. She looks. It's not her. It's a different name, but very similar, like in attitudes too. Of like, I'm gonna make this. That whole attitude of like, I refuse to call them the New Republic. They are still rebels. Like that attitude of like, no,
They're still rebel scum.
Yeah, totally. 100%. But yeah, I think jumping into the next episode, the Jedi I mean, ever since
this is
we
the
knew
one
about
that we
the
want
casting.
to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, ever since they announced the casting, we're all like, oh man, we're going to see a live Ahsoka. Oh boy, kind of thing. So
I have to admit that after no mention of her in last week's episode, I'm like, oh man, we're really not going to get Ahsoka until the end of the series. It was just going to be tease. And then it just went straight from tease to, and here's Ahsoka. It's like, shit.
I was not ready for her to be in the very first scene.
I was not ready to watch a live action episode of the Clone Wars.
Right?
Because that's what that was. Like an episode of the Clone Wars that was based very clearly on the entire body of work by Akira Kurosawa. That was an amazing episode.
I mean, I kind of figured we'd get her right off the bat when I saw that.
Sorry,
damn leg. I was saying, when I found out that Filoni was writing and directing it, and I'm like, oh, he's not going to bury the lead. Mm-mm. This is literally his baby.
And I'm sure he's been wanting to, throw that out there for a while, and it's probably torture to have to just like keep pushing it back to establish other concepts and plot lines before you can finally bring her in. And just bringing to fruition this character that he spent so many years working on and developing and basically growing up with. I mean, not him growing up with it, but you get to see her grow up from the age of 14. And now she's a 40-something-ish woman who's had a very complicated past. She used to look at the world in a very black and white manner. And, she trusted the people around her. And after everything that happens throughout the course of Clone Wars and some of the stuff in Rebels, and then whatever else we don't even know about, she's just, she has become a very different woman in some ways.
All of this is true.
Yeah.
The thing that I had a hard time with is, and I talked to Aaron about this a little bit, but I don't think I did a very good job of sort of explaining my feelings on it, is I was a little bit disappointed when she says that she can't train Grogu because
Oh yeah, that's
of
right. That's
his
the other big thing.
emotional attachments. Yeah. And I was a little bit disappointed because I think that she has taken the wrong lesson from the things that she saw happen with Anakin. It's still sort of the same Jedi order way of thinking of things. Is like emotional attachments are bad, and if you have them, it's only going to end poorly for the person being trained. Whereas I think that the correct way of looking at it is basically Jedi's you know the order asks their trainees to be very monk like and celibate in their entire way of life in order to successfully be the right kind of Jedi, and that's an impossible thing to ask of of a living creature who has emotions and different. Everyone's got a family, and just because you take someone away from that family at an early age does not prevent an attachment from existing or forming further, even if you are separated from them. And instead, she still looks at it. She still looks at it the same way, and like, oh, can't work with you. You've got attachments. Instead of recognizing maybe that's the wrong methodology and why it went wrong for Anakin and others.
So I'm of two minds on this. One is that this is an adage that people who have watched the movies are familiar with as far as the Jedi. And if you are considering that your viewers for The Mandalorian are people who have just watched the movies, or that there's a segment of your audience that has just watched the movies, that is a reasoning that they can identify with, because this is their introduction to Ahsoka Tano. They don't know who she is at all. The other side of that is for those of us who have watched the Clone Wars and Rebels and know who Ahsoka Tano is, it's not, you can add to the stack of she's using the adage of I can't train this person to be a Jedi because of their attachments. It's not that I can't train this person because of their attachments. It's I can't train this person because of their attachments. I'm incapable of doing it because I know what that leads to. I have watched that happen with my own master. I have seen the destruction of Kanan Jarrus, and we still don't know the outcome of what happened to Ezra Bridger.
Yeah.
So she's carrying the weight of those Jedi and those deaths or possible deaths, and knows that it's like I'm not ready. I am not. It's like I might in another 10 years I could probably train someone, but right now, no. I am still going through the trauma of that. So recognizes I can't do this, not I don't want to do this.
Okay, and I didn't consider those parts of it. I haven't finished Rebels, so I haven't
I'm
really
sorry.
unpacked. Oh no, that's okay. I'll be fine. It just means I haven't unpacked as many of her experiences as you have, and it is easier to process it that way. Like I personally do not have the right qualifications or experience in teaching others in order to teach them what they're going to need because of where they're coming from. I very simply looked at it as I think that you did not learn the right lessons about what happened to Anakin and why. The why being the part that I was really hung up on.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. You really get a lot of that weight she carries in her Rebels episodes.
Yeah.
You really feel it there, especially the fight. Not even a long scene, but it's emotionally devastating. So
I do think I think I know the fight you're talking about, and yes, it's sort of like the last nail in the coffin, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh my God! Someone fucking. It's not the best artwork, but someone did this 4-panel comic that means that like that's possible. That means Ahsoka and Luke could meet one day.
Mm-hmm.
And someone wrote this 4-panel comic where she sees Luke and she says, if you'd only known your father like I did, if you'd only known Anakin, you only knew Darth Vader, if you only knew what he used to be like. And in the panel, he says, no, I did. In his last moments, I saw Anakin. And it's flashing to him like, and he's like, tell your sister you were right about me. And then the panel cuts back to Ahsoka and she's just like all of it, all the pain comes out. He came back. He came back. It's that. And I'm like, oh my God, if they actually film anything even resembling that, I'm going to be a wreck.
Which they
Which
still
does
could.
lead me- So we talked about this after we watched it again. There are a few Jedis hanging around right now.
Mhm.
Some that we know of, and some that we clearly don't. And part of me is like, you know what? Make it somebody we've never met before. Because The Mandalorian was all about expanding the universe, and now it's kind of, it's doing, you know. But another part of me is like, Luke could sense Grogu. The timeline The Mandalorian takes place in, he's just now starting to rebuild the Jedi.
Mhm.
You know, this is the time period where he's, you know, he's really training, he's helping Leia. Like, this is that time period when he's like, look, if you want to learn to be better at this, I'll teach you. Like, if you want to, I'll do it. And we know that he does because we have those scenes in Rise of Skywalker. I don't know if they are. And again, I'd be of two minds. Part of me would just lose it. Another part of me is like, that makes the universe even smaller now. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
The goal seems to be we want to keep the Skywalkers out of this if we absolutely can. Because otherwise
The most
this
awkward
just...
freeze of Denise's image right now.
Oh no, I'm sorry, Denise. I'm sorry. She's probably talking to us too. I do think that oh, she's unfrozen. Yay.
I could hear you guys the whole time, but I guess you got, but none of you guys got to see all the weird faces I made.
We got to see one for an extended
No, we just saw the
period of
one
time.
really awkward one. Yeah.
It
It was like Frodo getting that D.
gross. Okay, but so what you guys were saying before I froze, it does bring me into something that I've been thinking about with both of these star shows. Due to the last couple weeks of material that we've been getting, is I saw someone online tweeting, I assume, about how they don't. I think they expect that Ahsoka is going to be a continuing character from here on out, and then it's going to just be like more Rebels, basically, or more Clone Wars, and how they're kind of cool with that. And I have to say, I don't think that I am. As much as it sucks to me, I really hate to part with a character I really love, but I think that both of these shows are wanting to sprinkle in enough of the existing characters that we know from throughout the franchises to keep it in universe and sort of like, do a little bonding there. But ultimately these are supposed to be new stories about new people, and I don't think that either of these shows are overdoing it with bringing in existing characters. Thoughts?
Yeah, so I actually don't think we're going to get Ahsoka anymore this season.
Mm-hmm.
We might get a hint about getting the gang back together for a season 3, but my gut tells me this was the one and done with her for now, for this season. And I'm actually okay with that. As much as I love her, from a storyline, it makes sense because it stops becoming the Mandalorian if Ahsoka by default, Ahsoka is not a backup character.
No, she's
Right.
not.
And it stops being, she's not.
And this isn't a show about Force users. I mean, just
Yeah.
the one. But it's not about.
Right,
It's,
but-
well, I guess it is a little bit about how he's a Force user, but not.
But he's a wee baby that gets sick from eating space macaroons on a space ride.
I also don't think that if we get Ahsoka in this season of Mandalorian, it will be brief. What I do know is there is the other Disney greenlit another TV show at the beginning of the year that is supposed to be a show that's female led, and is the showrunner is the creator and director of Russian Doll from Netflix.
Ooh.
And that's why I think they cast Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka Tano for The Mandalorian, so that she can be the lead of this other show, along with, Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan. And Sasha Banks is not Sabine Wren.
No, they confirmed what the female that show is.
Oh, did they? Who
It's
is
Dr.
it?
Afra. Dr. Afra.
Oh shit!
They could like months
That's
ago
gonna make
it was
some people pretty
confirmed.
excited.
Because he even tweeted, he's like, I've had to keep quiet about this for months.
Who tweeted about this?
The writer. What's his name? The guy who created Dr. Afra.
Karen Gillan?
Yeah. Alyssa Wong is the one adapting Dr. Afra into a Disney Plus series.
Hang on a second.
It's actually on the actual Star Wars site,
No, I believe you about the Dr. Afra one, but it's I think we might be talking about two different things, though.
Okay. Oh shit! And we're going to the planet that she led Vader on in her own series.
Oh, geez.
Because she has family that are rebels on Hoth, and she flat out lies to him and says, "Yeah, no, this is the ice planet that they were at before they find Hoth."
All right. I'm not finding anything
And now we're all
right
quiet
away.
here.
I want to spend the rest of the show talking about the internet.
The person I'm talking about is Leslie Headland.
Who's that?
She's the showrunner of Russian Doll
Oh,
on
okay.
Netflix. Her show is not Dr. Afra, and is
So then there's two.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, cool.
So that's the one that I think that's where Ahsoka is going to end up. Although she could also guest star.
Interesting.
Look,
She could show up on
Disney
Dr.
Plus is
Afra
the only
too.
thing that's making that company money right now.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and Star Wars
So-
shows are right there at the front for Disney Plus.
yeah. So I just lost my train of thought on that. And we didn't bring up the other 500-pound gorilla mentioned in that episode. Thrawn's back, baby. Or at least the shadow, Ahsoka thinks he's out. Well, no, he's out there then somewhere. Which means Ezra's back somehow, or not, I guess.
See, and that's the trick is we don't know about Ezra because Thrawn is clearly around. Are you getting attacked by a tribble?
Someone came in here, took beer from me.
Oh,
It's fine. That's all.
brute. That just because we know now that Thrawn survives the end of Rebels, that doesn't give us an indication of what happened to Ezra.
Yeah. No. Right. Yeah.
I
meant
think
more.
that Ezra Bridger has the 2-to-1 favorite odds of being the Jedi that reaches out to baby Grogu.
makes sense.
Like,
Well, and I feel like they're gonna want to have a new trilogy one day,
mm-hmm.
and they've said they want it to move. Well, no, that doesn't make. They've said they want it to move forward. They don't want to do it in the past. But also, it's like, but we're done with the. I don't know. I'm just spitballing this one.
Don't know.
And who knows how long Thrawn's race, the Chiss, actually live? I don't know what their longevity is, but something was pointed out to me today, and then I had to look up to verify. So the two assassin droids on the on this episode,
the HKs.
Yeah, they have on the side of their head, they have the emblem of the Seventh Fleet, Thrawn's fleet. So those are Thrawn's assassin droids.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So that means that we might see the Chimera. Oh. Yes.
Oh, what's left of it.
Or what's left. Well, he might have fixed it. Yeah, that's true.
So I have a very finite amount of time to finish Rebels in.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
You have a very finite
yes, you
amount
do.
of time.
In fact, I would try to finish it before next week, before Friday. How many episodes do you
Exactly. I was at least halfway through season 3. I believe there's 4 seasons.
Yes, there are 4 seasons.
Season 4 is kind of short. Is it shorter?
It is.
Yeah, it's a truncated season.
Right.
There is. Go ahead.
I kind of fell off the wagon, and it's been a while since I've watched any Rebels. That's why I'm not already done with it when I should have been, because I was really blasting through it. So I might double back to the beginning of season 3, even maybe only just to rewatch the Thrawn related episodes and then move forward from where I left off.
That's fair.
Right.
The one thing that I wanted to give a nod to was the character Morgan Elspeth. That actress's name is Robin Lee Insanto. She is the daughter of Don Insanto, who is a Hollywood martial arts expert. Her godfather was Bruce Lee. I learned all of this from another podcast that's called All the Asians on Star Trek, where she did an interview weeks ago. And she hinted at during that episode going, oh yeah, and there's this other thing that I can't talk to you about yet, but it's going to be great when it's out. I'll talk to you more about it. And her appearance in this episode of Mandalorian was what she was referencing. So
yeah, I when I watched it the very first time when she has the fight with Ahsoka, I saw this was such a wanky thing for me. I saw the way she was holding the spear on the top with just in the palm but not clenched. I'm like, and I actually said like, oh man, someone taught this actor like how you properly hold the spear or a staff if you're doing a fight. I was like, that's really cool. And then when it wrapped up, I'm like, well, I want to look her up then. I want to see what else she's done. And I read like, wait, that's her dad? Oh shit! And I was like, oh, that means Bruce Lee. And it's like the goddaughter Bruce Lee. I'm like, oh yeah, no one on set taught her how to do that. I think she helped choreograph that fight.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. I was like, oh, this makes that fight even cooler now.
Right? Like, as soon as it came on screen, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a boss fight. I mean, it's literally going to be a boss fight.
And I love it when they're not hyper fast. It's just the.
Oh yeah.
I love it when these fights are like half footwork of them just spicing each other up. I'm like, oh, it's so good.
And I bet people were expecting, oh, it's going to be this big flashy thing. I'm like, no, it's not. It's going to be slow. It's going to be like eight or nine moves, and then someone's going to lose.
Yeah, like the hits are going to be savage, but you're not going to see flashy flipping around Jedi with this flight. That's not what it's going to be.
The scenery tells you that because it's a beautiful place to have a fight.
And again, that gets into this is a Kurosawa fight.
Yeah. And also, like, she had flashy moves in the Clone Wars and Rebels, but as a rule, Ahsoka kind of fights the way Anakin trained her, and they're very much a face-off. I'm not gonna jump around. I'm not gonna fucking do force shit. We're gonna fight.
Yep. Get this done.
Kind of her always on. Yeah. And then a quick shout out also to fucking Michael Biehn. John Ringo. Um, he didn't have the huge part, but I did love his line when he had that whole thing. He's like, your side might win, my side might lose. Guess we just don't know. And then at the very end, sounds like my side lost. And he's supposed to put it was that great gunslinger. It was cool that this movie gave us both a great classic samurai homage and also on literally the other side of the wall, the gunslinger movie. I'm like, so cool.
I appreciated that they intercut that fight with that scene with the two of Mando and Bean's character just outside the wall, hearing the fight. It's like, yeah, like we didn't need to see the entire fight. We saw what we needed to see. We needed to also see what was going on outside. Like you're right. Yeah. It was a great Eastern movie and Western movie.
Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah, it was a nice little touch.
That's a really good way of putting that.
I'm hearkening that back to Bruce Lee and Kung Fu. It's an Eastern, but a Western.
Oh, it totally.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a Western, but an Eastern.
And then shout out to the Mandalorian having legit like proud father moments when Grogu takes the controller knob. He's like, good. That's a good. It's. I kept waiting to be like, who's a good boy? Like that's basically, And also, fucking shout out to him. That line at the end when he's like, "You need to go back. It's time for you to go." Like Pedro Pascal put just a slight like choke in his voice. Of Mando's like, oh, Mando's not gonna cry. It was nice. It was very subtle and very well done.
And then he sits with him for what we assume is like at least a half hour, just quietly holding my baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, until Ahsoka shows up and says, "No, go." Like I wasn't kidding. Go now. So, all in all, it's a strong week for our star shows.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Ooh. Well,
it does make me wonder what they're going to bring to the table this week. It's going to be.
Yep. So
I know
about a day after that episode debuted, one of the main like effects people basically tweeted, "You think this week was fun? You're not ready for the next 3 weeks." And I'm like, "Oh shit."
For which one?
Mandalorian. Mandalorian's only got 3 left. Trek has like 7 left.
Yep. So. Trek stretches all the way into 2020, the first week of 2021.
Yeah.
Great.
But I know that I don't know who's directing the next 3 episodes of Mando, but I do know that Peyton Reed's name is still in there. So we're going to get a Peyton Reed episode.
Why is that name familiar?
Yeah.
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Thank you. Right.
So like with you saying the effects crew is like, oh, it's going to be big. It's like, yeah, that sounds like a Peyton Reed. And then they're probably going to finish out with another Filoni and another Favreau.
Probably, yeah. I would. I mean, at least I've got to be one more Favreau, but maybe Filoni.
It's either Filoni or another Bryce Dallas Howard episode, which I ain't mad about that either.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it'll work.
I'm looking forward to to her first feature film. I will buy my ticket.
Wait, is there one in the works?
I don't know.
What is she doing?
No,
there's not. It's just I have enjoyed the 2 episodes of Mando that she's directed. It's like, yeah, do it. Do more. I want to watch them.
Right. All right, if we have a few minutes, we've been trying to do this since. I say we've been trying to do this since March. It might be nice if we just even briefly finally do this one segment just to get it over, like just to get us over that bump.
Sure.
So like I said, we talked about this earlier in the year, and then 2020 everything hit, and for one reason or another we haven't come back to it since. But Avatar, The Last Airbender. So Cable and I have watched the first 2 episodes. Aaron, I don't actually remember if you've ever seen them or not.
I still haven't yet.
All right, you're fine then.
Sorry. What? Sorry.
I
I haven't had a
well, I guess
chance to.
I should have verified that. Cable, did you get a chance to watch them?
Yes, I've
Okay.
watched. I think I've watched 6 episodes at this point. But
Okay.
our assignment was the first 2 episodes, which is the introductory arc.
Yeah. So this one's been around for a little while. I don't think that we necessarily have to like break down the plot of the show as a whole. I think anyone who's interested right now has probably already seen it. So we cover the first 2 episodes, which is the initial arc introducing the main characters, giving you a little bit of insight into what the world is like.
And
And
Katara
sort of,
and Sokka, is that right? Aang,
Yeah.
Katara, and Sokka. Okay.
yes. And also the ice buffalo. What is his name? I can't
Appa.
remember. Appa. Yeah. And so the world is sort of divided up into different tribes that are either earth, air, fire, water, and then there is an avatar who can control all 4 of the elements. And basically, they just throw it right out there before the end of the first episode, right? Or is the beginning of the second one?
He's the Avatar?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the conclusion of the first episode, is that he is the Avatar, and that's proven to the water tribe that he's found by, or that Katara and Sokka are part of, because the second episode is the prince of the Fire Nation, Zuko, realizing that they found the Avatar after his lifelong search. He's like, what, 16?
Right.
And
I thought he was younger than that.
probably, I don't know. They're all children.
Well, there's that line in Reese's, but you're just a kid, and and the Avatar's like, well, you're a teenager.
Yeah. Like Aang is 12.
The most, I would say.
Yeah. So
he's still very youthful.
That's a good one. I was going to go immediately with immature. So yes.
Either way.
And so we have the introduction and the reveal with the first episode, and the second episode is post reveal and the setup of protagonist antagonist for presumably the rest of the series. Because you just think, oh, that's what it's going to be. These people are going to go traveling around the world to try and get to the Air Nation, and the Fire Nation is just going to chase them the entire time.
Presumably.
Yep. I really didn't like. I've tried to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender before, and I think I made it about 6 or 7 episodes in before I lost interest. And
that's how I've been with it, and I want to try it. But
can you speak to what it is that made you lose interest?
It's juvenile.
Yes, it definitely has a vibe right off the bat that this is a show for kids. And I am going off of my trust in the people who have recommended it, who are adults, in that it is a very worthwhile watch. But yes.
Most of the adults that I know that say that, not all of them, but the great majority of them, were all children when they watched this show initially, or at least teenagers.
That makes me wonder when it even came out, because I am usually the youngest adult I know, or close to it, and I was pretty sure I was already adult by the time when this came out. So that's worth exploring.
I feel like it came out when I was in my 30s. early
2005. So it's been 15
2005.
years since they debuted.
Oh, it came out the year that this podcast started.
Technically, I was an adult when that came out.
I'm as old as Avatar.
Woo. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna, I definitely still want to give it a chance, but I hope that it's the kind of storytelling where, the characters mature as the story progresses.
I think it does to a point, but
yeah, that's also my hope. Like I would have described Rebels as juvenile when I first started watching it too, and it is.
Yeah.
Right up until Tarkin shows up and starts killing people, and then it's not a kids show anymore.
And this is also a Dave Filoni production, so
Interesting. That's right. I'd forgotten that.
yeah, because he went from Avatar to Star Wars.
Yep. So that means there's a giant sneaker wave somewhere in that first season. That's how he works.
Right, and that's what I'm here for. So
yeah, I just, like I said, I get where people love this and why, just based on the episodes that I've seen, but it's also very like, yeah, I would find this entertaining if I were much younger. Like like I was in my early 20s when Animaniacs was on. So I was not their target demographic, except I kind of was when it was first airing. And I think a lot of the people that I know that really enjoyed this were in their late teens or early 20s when Avatar first came out. So I get why they made that connection, even though it wasn't technically for them.
Sure.
It was supposed to be kids programming, but if you do it right, animation doesn't have an age limit.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm interested to see how this one pans out.
I do appreciate the fact that it's got one of the last performances by Mako, so that's always big in my book.
Oh, right.
He's the uncle from the Fire Clan, right?
Uncle Iroh. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Fire Nation.
He wanted to finish his dinner first.
Mm-hmm. And this tea. I love a good cup of tea.
So really quick before I forget, someone just shared a picture of Elliot Page and Laverne Cox together at some movie premiere.
Yeah.
And wrote, "Now hear me out, Mr. Miracle and Big Barda."
Yes.
Yeah. Especially if Ava DuVernay is still doing. I think she's still doing that movie. Well, she's technically doing The New Gods. But yeah, I saw that and I was like, well, I don't wonder. Like, oh no, wait a minute, that totally works.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
Yeah. Oh boy, the size difference really shows with those two, because Ellie's they're wee.
Oh yeah, they're what, 4'7"?
Yeah, Elliot Page is very, very small.
Yes.
Laverne Cox is very, very tall.
Yes.
Yes.
Just like Mr. Miracle and Big Barda. Actually, I think Mr. Miracle's like 6 foot. It's that Big Barda's Big Barda.
Yeah.
So
Big Barda is like 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
Without her boots.
Right. Or the headdress.
Yes.
That big ass headdress, which is awesome.
Yeah. Superman has to crane his neck to look up at Big Barda. If they're drawn the way they're supposed to be drawn.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find that picture.
Just look at my Twitter now.
Now, okay.
Right now.
Well, I'll do it after the show.
Sure. Yeah, we got to wrap up the show.
Probably
Also, I don't have access to my power, and the computer is at like 20%, so I got to run to plug it into Render.
Oh, no.
Oh, we
All
better.
right.
We really do gotta hurry up.
Yeah. I do believe next week we are going to have Nat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Reverend.
The Reverend.
I do believe
The
so.
Reverend.
Next week. So, yeah, we can say it now. We've got a pretty guest-packed month. Next week will be Rev Nat. Week after that will be David Walker. After that will be Greg and Lindsay with Building Character.
Mm.
And then I think we're planning a special pre-New Year's Eve cocktails with Geek in the City on the 29th.
That sounds great.
So
Maybe
we'll
virtual
open up to
cocktails with Geek in the City.
Yes, no, not yeah. No one come over to any of our houses, please, for the love of God.
Oh.
Don't. I won't let you in. I'll
Don't.
make you stay in the street. And I'll yell at you from my mic. So yeah, it's gonna be a packed December, and we're gonna try to have some fun, which is good. Yeah. Well, with that, I'm Aaron Duran.
I'm Bina Rita.
And I'm Cable Hashitani.
We'll see you all next. Just kidding. Week. I've always wanted to do a freeze frame. Freeze frame. Shh, shh. Yay!